Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Riley, and I am the founder of the Transition Academy Special Needs College and Career Planning Center. And we are here to talk with you tonight about a very relevant topic for the times that we're in, which is managing um, challenging behaviors during the pandemic. Um, we typically have an agenda of the first 30 minutes we spend with a presentation and Q&A, and then the last half we devote to resource sharing. And so we'll jump right in tonight with our topic, and we will have it led by the lovely, talented, and amazing Miss Andi Bonge. Andi is an occupational therapist who's been at it for over 20 years, changing children's and families' lives, and she is going to give us some tips on how we can make life manageable, reduce stress, reduce anxiety, and some of her experiences in the field. So last week we gave some strategies. This week we'll talk through some kind of real life examples. So without further ado, I will hand the mic to Andi.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back today. We didn't have any families that were able to take us up on our free consultation services as of right now. So I thought I would share a couple of experiences that I've had as a school district therapist attempting to serve families in their home. And the feedback, there's very limited access I've had to my students at home, simply because families are overwhelmed. It's very difficult to try to fit another thing in when you're working from home, trying to manage, your kids and their educational stuff, and, also dealing with income issues. So the few that I've had the opportunity to see or communicate with have been one little guy on Zoom, for example. He's a fourth grader, pretty low cognitive function, difficulty with both receptive and expressive skills, language skills. And so I had finally had the opportunity to schedule a Zoom session with mom. And since we're doing functional task sequences in OT in school, I thought, well, this might be a good opportunity to see if making a simple snack would be a place that we could start at home. And mom was agreeable to that. So about 5 or 10 minutes before our session, she texted me and she said, "We're doing ice cream." and I was like, okay, I'm good with that. I can fly. And so we got on and she's showing him go through the process. And as he was going through the process, I saw a lot of opportunities for him to kind of take ownership of that activity, or maybe a picture recipe sequence would be helpful for him to become less prompt dependent, because he was really needing mom's help to find the correct utensils. I mean, he definitely knew where the ice cream was kept. That was not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started scooping, and he scooped this huge amount of ice cream. And then he starts eating, happy as a clam.
A guy after my own heart.
I know. Ice cream is a weakness here, too. So mom and I were talking about, she said, "I'm sorry, the sandwich thing just wasn't going to work today." And I said, "Well, that's fine." I said, "There's some options that we can work with here if you'd like to go forward." And she said, "Frankly, I don't know how you can help me here." She said, "You're doing OT at school, you have your hands on him, and you're, prompting him through everything." And she's like, "That, I don't see how that's going to work here." And I said, "Well, I could send you some picture sequences, like picture recipes, different strategies for you, how you can prompt him through things while you're kind of fading the amount of help that he's needing." And through our conversation back and forth, it was really, she was communicating to me that with trying to work from home and with family routines, and she didn't say this in so many words, but really having me try to come in there and therapize her kid was going to be more intrusive than it was really going to be helpful. And it just really wasn't the right time for them for me to put another life skill agenda into their daily routine. I
Mhm.
think he's very screen focused. It's very difficult to get him, I think, aside from screen time and probably eating, I think to get him non-preferred activities probably will throw lot more battles into the day than what they were really able to take on right now. And, I know that as a parent too, just from having my own kids at home and trying to get them to start their chores and get their schoolwork done during the day. So very valid. And here's a place where, if you have the energy, setting up a schedule would be really helpful, probably more so than most people kind of think of, because you would have a couple days of pain because you're changing things and you're adding expectations that weren't there before. So the change is not always easy, but really,
Mhm.
if you keep it tight relatively quickly, you could have pretty meaningful change within that situation. So for example, making sure that everybody's up and dressed by 9 a.m., even if nobody's happy about it, being out of bed, making sure you've had breakfast, and then setting a family work time where you're at the table together. Um, and I know this is not possible for with every child and with every child's style of learning, but even if the child is spending 5 minutes of looking through a picture book while you are maybe sending an email to a colleague and then releasing your child to go have some reinforcement time with the screen, that would be a small step in the right direction to get a more structured work time. But again, we have to realize where we as parents are
Yeah.
is that we are really struggling to try to regulate ourselves right now also. We're
Right.
trying to figure out how to structure our own time and structure our own routine in a healthy way. Like Kim, you were saying, you're getting out every night and walking and you're feeling really gung ho, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm running out of energy. And I just, so
Mhm.
sometimes the most important thing we can do in our household is just figuring out how to get ourselves on a schedule and set kind of a model for the rest of the family. That's something that I've really had to work at, just making sure I'm not in sweatpants every day.
Mhm.
Because I tend to get kind of lazy if I'm in sweatpants. So just simple things like that. So the mom and I going forward have said we're going to keep our set Zoom schedule. But I said, I really need you to be candid with me. If it's not going to work, tell me it's not going to work. If it's not a good day, that's fine. I indicated to her, I am mandated by what the district is requiring me to do, and the IEP to provide you services in some way. And
Mhm.
so I will be bugging you via email or text or whatever. And so just tell me, no, it's not okay. I'm not into it. And I said, just ignore my efforts to get in touch with you. So we left in a good page.
Mhm.
I had another kid who's a kindergartner who is a very high functioning autistic kid and really doesn't show very many signs of autism anymore. But he still struggles with rigidity, some oppositional defiance issues, mostly related, I think, to anxiety.
Mhm.
And so for him, having a really structured school day and therapy times, work times are really important, because if he realizes that it's not you who's kind of setting the agenda, this is what the schedule looks like, we do it like this every day, there's a lot less fighting. Excuse me. And so at school, both in his classroom and when he goes to the therapy room, he has a set schedule with a sequence of how we do activities, what his reinforcements are. He knows how long the activities are going to
Mhm.
last, and he has some choices over his reinforcers that he does not have access to until he's done his work. So setting that up at home is really a challenge, because, and especially if you're trying to work from home,
Mhm.
you are just trying to keep the kid out of your hair so you can actually think to craft a sentence. And so one of the challenges, we have a morning Zoom meeting. It's every morning at 10, and we have OT speech and the educator on, and we do a abbreviated session of our morning circle. So it's very routine. They're very familiar with it. So it would really be a nice way to start the day, kind of get you started into the learning mode. And we're very consistent. We're on every day, Monday through Friday. And she's only been able to get him to attend one time. That was like when we were already a week and a half into it. He attended. I happened to miss that day. So sad. And then the next time she tried to do it, I think it was last Friday, she was struggling to get him on. And I saw lots of walking, from the iPad. I'm seeing ceiling, and she's walking back and forth. She kind of corners him finally in the bedroom, and he's throwing a fit. He is not going to get on. And that kind of is his MO. If there's a little bit of anxiety about what that situation is going to be, he will throw a fit. So this is kind of a perfect example of where some sort of loose scheduled work time, like if he just did 10 to 11 every day, that would be perfect. Starting with our morning Zoom meeting, and then going on to maybe handwriting or math or whatever, and then going off to play the rest of the day. A loose schedule would be really good for him, but challenging on the front end to set up at first. And especially if you're a stressed out parent, you're just struggling with the enormity of that task. It seems insurmountable. Another thing that would really work for him, and what I think I'm going to put together for my work for him tomorrow, is a social story about the morning Zoom and what that looks like and what to expect in it. And then also maybe some strategies that he can use at home to get himself to be in a better mental space to kind of work. He's a really bright kid. So, hopefully I can just get in touch with mom a little easier. It's been a difficult family to get in touch with because of all the stressors. So that's kind of my game plan. Another thing Kim had asked me last week, we were talking really about the importance of, and Kim, I didn't mention it this morning because it didn't happen until this afternoon for me. But we were talking about the importance of nutrition, just for families, for parents, for everybody to kind of manage stress. And, what is the one thing we turn to when we're stressed out? I myself have been heavily caffeinating and chocolatizing. So I've noticed in my kids, they're doing the same. A lot more sugar, even though we don't have a lot. I mean, Easter kind of brought some junk, and it's been kind of a sugar-free for all. And I can imagine with other families too, when you're just trying to get stuff done, you don't have time to monitor the diets and everything. So controlling that is very challenging. Kim had asked, what my ideas were for people who live kind of in food deserts, who have difficulty accessing fresh produce or whole foods. And I was able to get to a farmer's market today. I've been finding online, especially on Facebook, there's a lot of local farmers who are starting to bring out their spring produce. And this was in an abandoned parking lot in Independence. And I just drove there because I had nothing else to do. So just for families to look on social media to try to find and see, because I know a lot of farmers markets. There were a couple on Paseo, I know last summer, and some in Independence as well. So for people that are having difficulty accessing that, there's also a community garden off Swope Parkway. And geez, I can't remember the couple, Kim. I'm going to look for their card, but one of the churches off of Swope Parkway, they're doing community gardens, and they're giving the produce away to the local community. So I think that lettuce and stuff like that, maybe some early produce will be available that way. But just using social media and word of mouth to try to find and see if there's some stuff that's local and accessible to you.
Okay. Great. Great.
I can't remember if I've hit everything. Did anybody have any questions?
You know what? You actually covered quite a bit of ground. It's just so interesting to be in this time. And families are just, I mean, it happened so fast. So I think we were all unprepared for it. For the longest, it was something that was happening overseas. And then it just came and took over, the country.
Right.
And so, of course, with our students needing so much, anything about students who are maybe medically fragile, or maybe they have like complex needs, rarely do you just have autism, or, you
Right.
rarely have one diagnosis.
Right.
Any thoughts about approaches with
Yeah.
those kids?
So, a lot of children with autism and behavioral disabilities have a lot of comorbidities, right? A lot of GI tract issues, mental health, skin, self-injurious behaviors, which are really challenging. One of the primary things that I've just kind of seen over the course of my career and in dealing with one of my own children is that diet is so important there. If you're having a lot of problems with more medical issues, severe self-injurious behaviors, your diet is super important to keep it as clean as you can, which is a challenge. And especially since a lot of our children are really picky eaters. But again, the vitamin supplementation can really help that. So speaking with your physician about some possibilities to increase some minerals like zinc and magnesium are really important. It can help expand what the kids can tolerate, both sensation-wise and taste-wise, and helps improve neurotransmitter production, which will help it can help gut issues, it can help self-injurious behavior issues, things like that. The other thing is something that one of the both parents and professionals mentioned this morning. She and I were talking back and forth about, how the schools are not necessarily meeting the needs of the parents. And I would say that that's true. I know I'm not meeting the needs of my families. And a lot of that is because there's a communication breakdown, both because there's an issue with time, families, and also just getting materials that people need to their homes is a challenge. So in her and I talking today, it became clear that what the thing is just really talking with your therapists or your teachers about what it is you're needing. So like this parent mentioned this morning that she really needs more paper pencil stuff, because once she puts kids on the screen to access all the wonderful links the teachers are sending, then that kind of takes all her reinforcement leverage away. And then you're battling the whole screen thing. Which is so true. I mean, I almost never use screen in my own occupational therapy treatment, because the kids really need to work in a 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional world. So communicate with your therapists, and teachers, if there's something that you need, because I guarantee you they're wanting to figure out how to serve you better. They're just struggling with the best way to do that for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when that mom said that, it made perfect sense, because I know we're all like crawling into bed exhausted after a day of Zoom conferences. And I kept wondering, because there's such an array of needs, what would a packet, look like? Of course, it can't be standard. If we were to mobilize and launch kind of a paper packet, piece for families. I mean, I don't know where to start. I guess that's where we could.
Well, It's so individual, right? So like when I
Yeah.
do packages for my kids, and I only have at this one district, I've only got 14. I'm a 2-day-a-week person there, so it's only 14 kiddos. But it took me forever because everybody's got their individual goals. Everybody's got their different handwriting paper. I've got the kids on all sorts of different handwriting paper, and then to come up with lesson plans that specifically address their goals. I mean, for each kid, that's really, it takes a lot of time. So how would we do a packet? I think to me, a packet would look like an example of a schedule, like a schedule template. And you know what? There's an autism resource package. Kim, I will send you a copy of that. It is from,
Okay.
I want to say it's from like the University of North Carolina or something. Have you seen that one? Yes.
Maybe they've been
He's
coming fast
outstanding.
and furious.
It's outstanding. It's got a schedule. It's how to set it up. It talks about, I mean, it's just really a whole thing. Like, how would you kind of set up this thing at home? And I sent that link to all my parents, but again, they're not able to, some of them are not able to copy it off, or they don't know what to do with it. So
Okay.
maybe even breaking it down and making it more simple, or doing an online tutorial of walking people through the package. So they've got the physical materials, but you could also walk them through it, how to use it. Sometimes you just need examples to make you go, oh yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think some simple motor activities, like just like 2 or 3 different kinds of sensory bins that you can use. Things that kids can stim on that's kind of fulfilling some needs at the same time, giving you some free time. But it would be purposeful for them. And most of my kids, especially more kids with behavioral issues, they tend to have pretty significant dyspraxia or motor planning issues. So I work a lot with using songs that have movement to them. And so, or even like picture sequences of simple, fun, silly movement things. Like one of the things I do a lot is I will do happy and you know it, but I put in other funny moves like shake your tail feather and, pop your cheeks. So I use this really familiar song that they can key into, but there's always different movements and trying to make them sequence it at the end. So just little things to help keep the kids grounded during the day.
Okay.
No.
And then, of course, you swear by social stories.
I am a social story freak. And it was literally in the year 2000, which I discovered how magical social stories were. And I'm like, why are we not? I mean, I use them for everything and they work.
Okay. They're never too young and they're never outgrow the need
No,
for a
they're not.
social story.
They're not.
Cool.
So we had talked today about if anybody would be interested in getting together as professionals to kind of work and collaborate and figure out how to get more usable resources into the hands of families. I would be happy to work with a group to do that.
Okay.
So I would love to. If that's something that anybody else is interested, you can let Kim know and we can get some Zoom meeting going and figure something out. We could even maybe get copies donated from somebody, postage donated. I mean, we can figure out how to make something like that happen.
That would be fantastic. I think everyone's wanting to do something, so this will be a great project to mobilize, partners and, folks in the community. So yes, let's definitely set aside some time. Are we going to have yet another Zoom conference, Andi?
I think it's in the cards. I'm getting so good at it, Kim.
Okay, Zoom away. We shall.
Zoom away.
Okay, I'll reach out to Danielle, the mom, who she also works for Show Me Casey Schools, and that's our school choice navigator partner. So when families are looking at district schools or in charter schools, they kind of help to show them who offers what. And so I'll reach out to Danielle and see if she can stick her head above water and chat with us before the week is out. See if we can
Okay.
come up with a plan.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Andi? Okay. Well, thank you so much, lady. Andi was Kendall's OT when he was first diagnosed, so when he was 3. So that, and he's now 21, going on 22. So that tells you how far back we go
Me
and
too.
how much of like a wizard I think that she
Not
is.
true.
Oh
That's
my,
not true.
she was just the absolute best. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Oh, okay. And Marianne, let's see. Did you want to chime in, Marianne?
Yeah, can you hear me, Kim?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. Andi, thank you so much. Here's one thing, just spanning the lifespan a little bit for who might be receptive to getting good information on these calls is I'm thinking also about our adult kids, Kim, and I think one of the big issues that is out there right now is the whole idea that we have a bunch of kids that typically are in a day service or in a job, and now
Yes.
they're not going to either one of those. And
Right.
so, it's either they're at home with their families or they're in residential group homes like my daughter is. And, they just, like they need a packet of what to do and things to try. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so difficult because people have different needs in those homes. Typically they match, not everybody is you know, super involved because they have to balance out who's in the house so that the staff can, get things
Right.
done. But it's interesting. Like today, Kaylee had a doctor appointment. My 26, going to be 27 next week, year old. And Andi, Cy, and Kim know this, but Kaylee functions like about 12 to 18-month old, nonverbal. Obviously severely affected. And I was at the home today and I'm like, is there a reason why you're not opening up the shades on the windows in the house?
Yeah.
Like these kids can't, they're confused about what time of day it is, what's going on. And I said to them, today's a lovely day? Is it possible that, the other problem is everywhere that we would take these kids on some free time, or many of the places we would take them, whether it be to Walmart or whatever, we don't want to go, we can't go now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an answer, to tell you the truth, but if we think we might be at this for another month, and
Mm-hmm.
Marianne, I think you're absolutely right. There is a lot we can do with that population.
I
I think
think
there's a lot.
so.
It's kind of surprising that the staff aren't doing it themselves.
I think the staff haven't managed being in the home during the day. They're used to
Right.
helping them out during day service, and they have all kinds of activities at day service. They brought some of the games home, but somebody like Kaylee, really exercise is probably the best thing that you can do with somebody like her, and they're reluctant to take everybody out. Just
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know
Yes.
why. I don't know, but I know it's happening everywhere. I know
Right.
it's just a situation that they have never encountered. So they're trying to figure out how to do it. And like, for instance, I'm just going to give you an example. She's with Options in Kansas, and I believe Options has 14 homes. And so, I don't know if we need to make it any bigger and wider than what we're already trying to cover, but I just think this is also a group that needs help. And
So true.
it's just uncharted territory.
Mhm.
And it may only last for another month or whatever, but all of our normal coping mechanisms and ideas for how we make things work are off the table right now because we can't really go anywhere other than
Mhm.
outside. So,
Yeah. Marion, I would love to maybe put my head together with you.
mhm,
Kendall is in the same boat as Kaylee,
mhm.
and not only can he not have home visits right now, and it's been 3 weeks.
Right,
Mm.
But the only thing that's kind of saved him was normally he has a Kindle Fire at home, and I sent that back with him and some earbuds. And
mhm.
so the report is, oh my gosh, he loves his tablet. He's doing great on that. Um, but I mean, we've been kind of holding it together for 3 weeks. I don't see that being like a 6 week, six
I
more week
know.
solution. And they live like around the corner from a park. And so
Right,
I was like, well, what if they just kind of went on a walking trail, just
right.
and so it would be I would love to kind of strategize with you on how to engage that population around, what is possible. Because so often we go to the most extreme end of risk aversion,
Right,
and we never really just talk about possibilities. So
right.
if you have some time this week, let's put our heads
I,
together.
okay, I think that's good. And, we might even get, um, I might even get the owner of Kaylee's home. I mean, Sai, you'd have to approve this for me because obviously it's my time, but it's, she could maybe get on and talk about their challenges so that we could
Yeah.
come to a better understanding of what their limitations are, or whatever. Or I'd be happy to even do that on my own time. So yeah, Kim, let's see if we can talk. And it is just, I mean, I have said to Sai, Andy, I've said to Kim, if she was
Mhm.
still under my roof right now every day, I have her 2 days a week,
Mhm.
two nights a week, 2 full days on my own on my weekend, and but if I had her every day of the week right now, I literally would be having anxiety attacks. I'm not even anxious. Because
Exactly.
you just don't have any of your normal
No.
routine, any of your
Right.
normal coping, anything that sets him straight. I mean,
Even when it's calm, you're anticipating, you
Yeah.
know,
totally,
right.
Yeah.
So,
totally,
I hear
totally.
you.
And
Yeah.
Marianne, you described it as the 5 month summer, which is
Oh my God.
every parent's worst nightmare. And
Yes.
since we're talking about the Groundhog's Day situation, but uh, Andy, you hit so many strategies that I think address this exact issue, which is create any structure out of no structure, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
this message.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
look around you. Would it be ideal if we were all being really super productive? Sure, but ideal was 2 weeks ago, and so what do we have? And so Kendall's tablet. What a perfect thing to do to keep him being productive at leisure activity. Is that all I want him to be doing forever? No, but
Mm-hmm.
Right,
let's add to the list and let's create a schedule where there's tablet time and there's the one other thing we can think of, and let's alternate. And that's such a small baby step, but that kind of mixing it up, broadening reinforcer repertoires, coming up with new leisure activities, putting it in a schedule.
Yeah.
Families use that at home all the time, and group homes, residential care can use that. But it's not as easy as it sounds because it
Yeah.
requires you to think about every possible activity given the constraints that we're facing now.
yeah,
Right.
That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
Right.
And then just the thought that like Camping Courage just canceled today for the summer.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah,
Oh.
and they're
Yeah.
heartbroken. And,
Absolutely.
Barnabas canceled last week. And so
Mm.
even these parents thought of the 1 week or the few days that they're going to get off this summer. Now they're not going to get it off. And I mean, I just want to cry for them because
Mm-hmm.
I just know how I felt. And I
Mm-hmm.
just like, wow,
Right.
uh, we need a big parent, like parent camp after this is all over, so that they can.
With a tiki bar.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yes, that never closes, you know.
Yes, that's right.
So, yeah, it is just a super duper challenging time. But I think you're right, Sai. I think, you know, and Andy, I think you're right on schedules and whatever. And yeah, there's just a lot that I think can be done. And, you know, I'm sure there's some silver linings. I just haven't been able to quite pick them out in these situations where we don't have options to take them out to do things. I mean, that's the real difficulty, I think, that you can't, you know. And then it's been raining and it's 25 degrees, and then, you know, I mean, in the lovely days we've been out and about, but
well, Marianne, let's put our heads together before the week is up, and let's talk with some of the adult service providers about just some possibilities to get us through.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay.
And you guys, if I could be of help with that, I would love to. I have worked with adults also, had an uncle who was in a group home setting. And so I worked with his staff a lot. So if I could be of help, I would like to.
Love that.
That would be fantastic.
Please use me as a resource.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, any other questions for Andy? Okay. Well,
so great to meet you all tonight.
Yeah, really nice. Thanks for your.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch. Don't change your number when you see me, my number come across your screen.
Oh no, Kim's making a COVID call.
Block.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So how about I pass the mic to you to share about adventures in telehealth?
Yes, I'm going to cross my fingers that my dog barks while I'm talking, because that would be an accurate representation of what my life has been like doing telemedicine so much the last few weeks.
Oh my gosh.
But you know, maybe one silver lining that I've experienced is that the families who we've been connecting with using technology now more than ever have been really thrilled by it, because you know, they're stuck in the desert, as we've been talking about, without any support. And so having me beamed into their living room or, you know, wherever has been both a change of pace and also a chance to kind of reorient a tiny bit. And so we, you know, Children's Mercy, of course, is mostly medical service, but our mental health division has been most successful at pivoting to telemedicine, because a lot of what we do is talking instead of, you know, physical exams and procedures and things like that. So we've been actually at the forefront of trying to pivot to offering that, and families have been very receptive, and we've all been learning the technology as we go, but families, I think, have been giving us a little bit of leeway, and as we learn together, it's been going far better than I would have predicted, to be honest.
Good. That's good. Any like lessons learned during this time?
Far more than you want to hear about. But I think one big lesson has been that it's always worth double checking the technology in advance. And so folks we have on the front lines calling families, scheduling appointments, they're able to offer trial runs to make sure that, you know, things are working on both sides, and families that have taken advantage of that, I think, have been really happy. Related to that, though, has been sort of giving ourselves permission that if it's not working, to switch. And so, you know, when we try and do video calls and it works, that's fantastic. But if after a minute or two we realize this is not going to happen, then we just talk on the phone. And honestly, I've had more very long phone sessions in the last 2 weeks than I've ever had, and they're fine. Parents are really appreciative. We're able to talk about all the things we need to. And so, you know, we think that, you know, whether it's therapy or counseling or, you know, whatever service it is, has to be in a special place or in a, you know, I'm dressed, like I'm dressed at home, not like I'm going to work, and that's fine. The content is what matters, and so being a little more relaxed about the way we do it, I think, has been important.
So it sounds like we're all saying the same thing, is this is the time to grant grace to all of us. Just, take some of the pressure off. We're not talking about being perfect. We are just talking about like making it through and dealing with ourselves, our needs in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And, the discussion earlier was so great about trying to do school-based activities or therapy-based activities at home. And that can look so different for different families. And I feel like half of my time has been spent saying, all right, you have such great goals. Let's just make it easier for you. That's fine. Nobody's going to win any awards for teaching at home when you didn't ever plan to do that, right? So give yourself a grace. Instead of accomplishing, nothing and feeling bad about it, pick out some small wins and take it from there.
So it sounds like, and I can see myself in these parents. I'm going to the doctor's appointment, so I need to kind of put my best foot forward and kind of put on my super parent cape, because I've got to impress the doctor, that I'm, I'm holding it down. And you're saying,
No. No. We are already impressed with parents for being who they are and loving their kids the way they do. So there's no worries about that. I've had parents worried that doesn't look clean, in the room behind them, or that other kids are screaming and hollering, and that's just real life. I'm coming to you from the one room of the house that appears clean because you can't see the floor, and we get through. It's totally okay.
So true. So true. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I love the call out to that resource from North Carolina, and I can make sure you have the link to that. It's also, so we put together our whole division, and Marianne, you help with this too. We put together this social distancing with a plan toolkit for families, and it's on the Mercy website. And there's a whole autism specific section of that toolkit, and that's one of the links on it. So I'll send all of that your way.
Okay. Is that what I sent out last week in last week's resource list, Marianne?
I think so. Yeah, I did send it to you last week. Yep.
Okay. Let me share with you what's going out in this week's resource list. There has been a new coalition formed. It's called Educating All Learners Alliance. And the goal is to share resources and build community to support the needs of all learners during COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the partners include the Council for Exceptional Children, Autism Society of America, National Association of School Psychologists, Diverse Learners Cooperative, the ARC, Learning Disabilities Association of America, and National Disability Rights Network, and Understood. And that link, which is educatingalllearners.org, is listed on this week's resource list. And then the other resource that's on here is that on Friday, Goodwill launched a text line for people needing assistance in 4 key areas to do a job search, whether it's applications, resume, job leads, or ongoing support. Also, if anyone who needs help with unemployment claims, also anyone who needs help filing their taxes in order to receive the stimulus, and then families or individuals that need to be connected to banks that offer free checking accounts, and then other referrals in general, and to community resources. And so again, this will be in this week's resource list, and it's you just send a text to 816-842-7425. There's no eligibility requirements, so very generous service that Goodwill is providing to our community. So that's what'll be going out in this week's list. And then if you guys send me the North Carolina link, I will send that out as with it as well.
Great.
Okay. Any other feedback you guys want to share?
I don't think so. Thanks,
I
Kim.
don't think so, Kim. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Our final piece, and I forgot to share this morning. We were just kind of on a roll, weren't we, Mary Ann?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted
For
to.
next week.
Yeah, so the final piece is the calendar for April. So next week, we will have the first of our two-part series, Sexuality and Youth with Disabilities, How to Have the Talk with Your Child. Dr. Darrell Lang will lead us in this discussion. He has had many years of experience. He talks about the importance of sexuality. It's so amazing that while our children can have delays in every conceivable area, they do not seem to be delayed in their sexual development. Their speech may be delayed, their motor skills may be delayed, but their social skills are certainly delayed, but sexuality, they reach their peak along with their peers, and we are never really prepared for it. And so he talks through that, and he's going to not only talk through it, but each family will leave with a copy of a script, and that will help them to have the talk. And he, like Andi, has agreed to coach up to 3 families on how to have the talk with their children. And then the next week, he and possibly the families can share how that went. So we're hoping to, again, there's so much focus on federal and state regulations, and but we want to make sure that we meet families where they are. So I think, Mary Ann, as we're talking, this kind of opens the door to being able to really address the needs of adults with disabilities. And then another piece that's we're looking at for May is having a virtual, maybe a senior recognition / transition fair. So because the school year just abruptly ended, making sure that we recognize these students, and also help to connect them with transition resources so that they can have their college, career, life skills, whatever their post-high school plans, they can have that set up for when this quarantine ends. So that is what we're looking at for May. And I do think that definitely kind of sets the stage to really engaging our adult families and our adults with disabilities.
Hey, Kim, can I ask a question about next week and the week after that?
Sure.
Is there a way you can ask this expert if he can also address some of the challenges with our lower functioning kids that are still that might not be able to understand just what some of the challenges are, like masturbation, like well, I mean, just even like you said, it's interesting, even though they don't get it, or I'll just speak for Kaylee that she doesn't get it. I mean, she's still got her period at 12, or 11, whatever. So that's the only thing she's done early in her whole life. And so just some of the challenges that lower functioning kids, like I know I have friends that especially with boys, seem to just go crazy when they start when the whole change starts happening, and don't know what to do with erections, and just like some of the troubleshooting in the not typical population that you might be able to talk to about it, or you might be able to reason. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. How do
Okay.
we explain
Yeah.
and make it clear to lower functioning?
And how do we handle it as parents? Like, what's the best way to handle that?
Okay, I'll definitely throw that out to him. And he's
Awesome.
been at this for a long time, so he really wants to demystify it, help families to understand this is a normal part of life, and this is how we make it clear. So I will definitely relay that message to him, and
Great.
we will all learn a thing or two, won't
There
we?
you go. There you go. Always
yeah.
up for that.
That's right. That's right. So, and maybe we can strategize about getting the word out to some
Right.
some
Right.
lot of families. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Great.
any other questions or feedback? Sorry, I got the link, and I'll definitely add that to this week's list.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and you all have a wonderful evening. I will make sure that we send a recap. And we'll be in touch for an exciting 2 weeks learning about sexuality. And I'm sure we as parents are going to learn and get over our angst. And we're going to all be better for it in the end. So,
There you go.
okay. Well,
Awesome.
thank
Thanks,
you so
Kim.
much. You all have a wonderful evening.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.